Welcome to the Black Evolution. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Dad Day up in the building, and I got a very special guest. We're going to talk about several topics. We're going to talk about Kyrie Irving and the vaccine, COVID, the pandemic, critical race theory. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get into these topics, ladies and gentlemen, I have a great special guest in the building. She is a teacher. She is a great elder. One of the smartest people you know. She is Miss Jeanette Robinson, the grand elder or grand teacher of Mr. Kid Clutch. How you doing, elder?
Thank you for that introduction. I like that. I'm glad you said I was a grand elder. I guess I'm a teacher. I'm really is. I like to tell stories. I like to tell people. I like to, see whatever's going on in the world, whether it's sports, education, or entertainment. So, that's kind of where I am. And I know sometimes what I say may be controversial, but then that's the way of the world. Without controversy, you don't have too much going on. So it's got to be a push and pull. I'll push it, you pull it, you take it to where you think you want it to go. Leave it there, think about it. I always tell people, whatever I say, listen to it and then roll it around in your head and see what you think about it. Because either you're going to say, let me think about this for a minute, and we'll go from there. So let me do the sports, if that's okay with you.
No problem.
Okay, let me do the sports with Mr. Kyrie Irving. Bless his heart. Now, Mr. Irving has decided he did not want to be vaccinated. I don't know what his particular reason for it, but although he was born in Australia, he came back to the United States when he was 2 years old. And I'm sure that all the vaccinations in order to go to school. He has children, and I'm pretty sure that they've got to have their vaccinations as well. My thing is, don't put your family at risk simply because somewhere in your head you want to be the strong man, and I am not going to get my vaccination. We know you're famous. That works. We know all of that. But make sure that your family is safe. So there's got to be a good reason for it. You haven't said that it's because you have religious views. You haven't said because you don't trust the science. It's just that I'm not going to do it. That's being a petulant child, stomping your foot, and then your mother said, well, you got to do this, and you stomp your foot standing and say, I'm not doing it. You got to understand, you may be worth $90 million today, but tomorrow you may not be worth $90 million. You got to understand who's running this show. We're not running it. I mean us, the black folks. The black powers of be, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. We're not running this show, okay? So you've got to understand that since we're not running this show, the man that's running it any day out of the week can say, okay, that's cool, we don't need you. We got other guys who want to take your spot. And my thing, at $400,000 per game, 6 times that in a month, if you play 6 games in a month, that's a lot of money to lose. So you have to think about it. Whether what you want to do, it's either the money or your health or you have some other reason. But if I was you, I would think about all the things that could happen and should happen and would be. LeBron James got his shot. He held out to the very end. And I think somebody said, well, I don't think he had anything to do with money. His had to do with what he was thinking about himself and his family and how it would affect them. I don't think he was doing it for publicity. I mean, he's all over the place. Kyrie is all on the news and everybody is talking about him. Yeah. Nobody was talking about LeBron James like they'd say maybe 2 or 3 times. He doesn't want to get his shot. And that was the end of the story. They didn't talk about it anymore. And then I think 2 weeks ago, on one of the shows, I was at MSNBC, Jamil was on there talking sports. He says, well, LeBron got his shot, and he showed on TV where he got his shot. That was it. End the conversation. So I would suggest to Mr. Kyrie Irving, you need to get yourself somewhere in a corner and think about it real fast. Who's running this show? Because you know what can happen to you when you decide, like the man said, well, he doesn't want to play. He don't want to come to Brooklyn. He was going to miss, 5 or 6 games. That's money in our pocket because we don't have to pay him. If he don't play, we don't pay. And so, Irving, anybody listen to him, you need to talk to the boy. Wake him up. They talking about woke. He needs to be woke. Okay. And we move on from there.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of stuff to unpack what you just said. And I definitely agree with most of everything you just said about Kyrie Irving and everything. And of course, I have my thoughts about him. I think he's a great player, one of the best players that I know I've seen. But in regards to his topic on the vaccine, I think he needs to get more educated on the vaccine and everything else, know what's in there and everything else, and basically make up your mind to be very clear on where you stand when it comes to taking the vaccine, what have you. Don't just be like, oh, be all over the place, and then you got people riling people up, and then they're supporting you, saying he's the next Colin Kaepernick, he's standing up and stuff.
Exactly. Because you can see what I looked at Kevin and I said to myself, I said, you know what? I mean, I agreed with him. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I agreed. I knew what he was doing. He was not doing that to disrespect the flag. He was doing that because of the people that died because of that. So I could understand that, but I don't have any understanding of this. And I live in a town where there's a lot of folks who don't want to be vaccinated. But, that's their choice. But hopefully people will go on and get their vaccinations and move on with their lives because, for a long time, I didn't want to get mine. And then I said, yes, I do. So that way everybody got their vaccination. So, come on, Kyrie, let's get this over with because folks in Brooklyn want to see you play. Me, I'll watch you on TV. I'm not going out in a crowd. I'll go out in a crowd maybe next year, but not this year. I'll watch you on TV. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So for that's it. But my other issue that I want to point out on COVID-19, and I don't think a lot of people pay attention to this. I'm what you call I'm a news junkie, but I'm a history. I love history. It's one of my favorite topics is history, and I can talk about that all day and all night, good, bad, or otherwise. But there's this gentleman. His name is Jim Jordan. Does that ring a bell with you?
Jim Jordan?
Yes.
I have some semblance of who he is, but not really that in much detail.
He's a senator. He's a grand old white senator, Jim Jordan, who does not wear a coat or jacket when he's up on stage. He's a Republican. And he's up there and he is doing his very best to create a lot of animosity and issues all over the place. Well, in case people don't know, Jim Jordan has decided that he thinks it's a good idea to, maybe at some point in time in his tenure in Congress, to introduce an idea that they should ban all vaccinations, all of them, mumps, measles, chickenpox, everything. All of them should be banned. You should not have any of them. So I think you need to put that out there. Folks need to know that Mr. Jordan would like to do that. Of course, he's got to run for office too. And I don't think there's a lot of parents going to go for that. But just in case they haven't heard it, that's what he proposes to do. And he is in Ohio. I don't remember the name of the town, but that was just a brief on the side with the COVID. So that's I'm gonna quit.
Yeah. With the whole COVID thing, Jim Jordan, of course, this is probably that's one of the most biggest idiotic proposals I've heard in a while. With banning all vaccines and everything, you're putting people in danger, you're putting people at risk. But of course, I know what he's doing. It's all a political game to gain his constituents and everything, and to kiss up to all of his people.
You don't even want to know who that is. That's the old Trumpster, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
The other thing, I was talking to someone about masks, and I don't know. I wear a mask. I hate those things, but I wear them because they say you should wear it, and I think it's helped a lot. Doctors and nurses have to wear masks all the time. They're in the hospital, they wear masks. When they come to see it, in the room to see you, they have a mask on. But one of the things about this, I saw an article, and I cannot remember the name of the person who wrote it, and it's only recently. It showed a picture of the Ku Klux Klan, and there was about maybe 100, and they were at one of their meetings. Now, you should know, you're a college student, so you know what the Ku Klux Klan wore, what they looked like when they held their meetings.
Yep.
The Ku Klux Klan was standing there. It was a hot day. It was an evening. And they had on their robes. They had on their sheets, and they had on their face coverings. Now, you got to look at those pointed hats they had on. They only showed the eyes. There was nothing for them to breathe through, okay? Maybe a little hole for their nose. So whoever the person was who showed this picture, they said it didn't look like they complained about wearing a face. You're arguing about a child or an adult wearing a mask, which you can see there, and they can breathe. Evidently, the Ku Klux Klan wasn't interested in that. If they could wear a mask, you can wear a mask. And this was to the situation going on in Texas, where they mandated you don't have to wear a mask. Why are you wearing a mask? If the Ku Klux Klan can wear a mask, you can wear a mask. Those are your boys. You might have to edit it out.
I mean, hey, no. On my podcast, we speak the truth on here. We don't hide. We don't shy away. I think one of my episodes we talked about cancel culture and how they, canceling everything. But that's a whole other topic and everything. We go into another time. But the next topic, speaking of Ku Klux Klan and stuff, we're going to talk about this one theory. It's called replacement theory. It's old conspiratorial theory where they talk about how they're going to replace everybody.
Oh, come on. Do you want to do that? I've been getting a lot on that. Do you want to do that at a later date? Because I have a lot of stuff on that one. I think maybe on my first one, this should be pretty much enough. Do you think? What do you want? I mean, I got lots of stuff now.
I mean, I don't mind. We can go a little bit, dive into the replacement theory and stuff, and then close it out with critical race theory and stuff. But
let's talk about the replacement theory, because critical race is something that I really want to get in, because first of all, it's disappearing. Have you heard anything about it? You're not hearing about it anymore.
Nope.
You know why? People don't understand what it is. They don't understand. I'm trying to find out how it came out. But critical race theory has been around since like the 70s. When I was in college, I went to an unorthodox college, which was founded by a woman named Audrey Cohen, who went out to Berkeley, learned about this, and came back to New York and set this college up, which was called the College of Human Services. Now it's a big college with metropolitan something. I'll get the name later. And that was the first time we heard about it, because the College of Human Services was totally different. It was very much different, which is I really liked it. Talk about that, not now, but later on, way down the road, and I had nothing to do. And what happened was, back in the 70s or 80s, there's two professors from Harvard University. One was from Harvard, and I remember where the other one, I think her name was Kimberly, can't remember her last name, I got all that written down someplace. But they were looking around, trying to figure out what causes people to do certain things in terms of race. Where does it come from? And it actually had nothing to do with education. Actually, it had to do with the law, with how people were treated, how the whites were treated, and how the blacks how different people, different things. If you were in jail, white person was treated different things. So they sort of put all this together and, turned it into an educational paper. They were writing papers. So what they said is, look, this is a critical theory. This is critical to the races. Actually, that's how it came out. It's critical to the races. We need to give this to people so they can understand why they are so racist, or why our system is so racist, why we have systemic racism. That's what they put together. And teachers don't really know about it. Listen, in this family, I've got, Clutch has about 5 or 6, 7. His cousins are teachers. His uncle is a professor. And I asked him, he said, listen, he knew about, of course he knows about it, because he can repeat the entire Constitution at the drop of a hat, because he had nothing else to do, because he was involved with the civil rights, and he was always quoting things on amendments to people. I used to get very tired of that. But he said people don't understand what it's about. He said, so someone picked it up and said, oh, this is bad. This is what they're teaching the black kids to be. It's sort of a reverse of racism thing. It's very hard to explain. But whoever picked it up and took it into the school system in Southlake, is it? Where they're doing these podcasts on? Mm-hmm. They got it all wrong. They introduced it to the school board. And naturally, the school board, you can say anything that's racist, and that's it. They got it. When we are not going to have this because you're telling our children that they're not as good as they are. You're creating racism. And it was some, anyway. It's a cold, but I'd rather not get into that piece right now.
Yeah, it just went on and on. It's like, oh man, it just.
But I wrote it down exactly what it means. People need to get the. It's not a book, but it's a pamphlet. You need to read it, and you will understand what the critical race theory is. It is nothing, and I repeat, nothing that you can teach to children from K through 12. They do not teach it in those schools. Some of the teachers said they'd never heard of it. They never learned about it. So therefore, it should not even be on the book when it comes to racism. Put it on the side. Leave it alone. If you don't know what it is, don't touch it.
Yep.
And the school boards don't know what it is. People on the school boards, they there to make sure they kids getting the right books, the right lunch, and all of that. Not the critical race. They're not there for that. So, somebody brought that up. So I'm really trying to find out who the person was who brought this up and didn't know what they were doing when they did, because now it's sort of disappearing and replacement theory is taking it up.
Yep, I've seen it the past few weeks. I saw an article on CNN where the replacement theory is blowing up now, where saying, oh, the Jews not going to replace us. The immigrants are not going to replace us. They're trying to replace us. We're being wiped out. It's white genocide. I'm like, oh, God.
Well, I've done the census because I worked for nonprofit organizations for like 45 years. I started out thinking I wanted to be a teacher, and I had a horrible awakening about deciding to be a teacher. I did a summer. You have to do a summer program when I was coming out of school, and that's where you were assigned for this summer, and you were given a student to work with. I was given a student, a young man. He was in the 9th grade. I think he was 15 years old. And his reading was subpar. Like he couldn't, wasn't picking up on things. So they had just had a program come out where you put the earphones on and all of this and you learn to read. I had this kid for maybe 3 weeks in the summer. And he was not even reading at a 4th grade level. He was somewhere around, and he was in this school in the Bronx outside, because I'm in New York. He was in the school in James Monroe High School. That's where he was supposed to be going. You can't read. My kids, they could read, but I didn't send them to school if you couldn't read. You can't go to school if you can't read. At least know your name and address. He could not read. And I was so frustrated because I never ran into anybody who could not read. Not a kid. I never ran into it. I had heard about it. People's children can always read. The child could not read. And at that point, that's why I said I can't be a teacher because it's too frustrating for me. I don't have the stamina to deal with what you have to deal with giving a kid and they can't read, especially when he's come through a school system and you haven't bothered to try to help him, get him to the point where he's in the 9th grade. So what the hell has he been doing for the last, 7 years that he was in school? Did anybody know that this kid couldn't read? What was the teachers doing? Just pushing him through school, just saying, okay, here you go. Today, he's probably about 50, 60 years old. He either can't read, can't write, somewhere homeless, don't have any idea of what the world has to offer to him. That's why we got a lot of folks out here in the situation that they're in. And they talk about replacement theory. Well, okay. There's a lot of folks out here need to be replaced, if the truth be known. Tucker Carlson on Fox News, he's great for replacement theory and vaccination. You shouldn't have. The thing with replacement theory, it's not new, okay? It is not new. Never has been new. It wasn't called replacement theory. In my world, it was called, there's more of us than it is of you. And it's a fact. There's more minorities in this country than there are whites. when you listen to these people yelling about the abortion, they're not complaining about abortion for minorities and for, say, black women, Asians, Latinos. They're not talking about abortion for them. They don't care. What they're talking about is abortion for their white maidens. Our white women are having abortion. Our white women are not producing enough children. If they don't produce enough children, we're going to be replaced with minorities. The largest population that's growing in this country right now is the Latinos. That's one of the largest populations in this country today. Okay? The population of the minority of all the minorities in this country right now is 12.4%. Right? Well, this was in 2020 because I do the census every 10 years or whatever they call it. But that was then. And I looked it up again this morning just to make sure that was the population in 2019, 2020 when they did the census. So we are going to outpace the other flavor of the month. We will outpace them at least in the next 10 to 15 years. The population of the United States will be, the majority will be brown and black people. And so people they complain about the abortion. The abortion has nothing to do. And you know what? I think that's why I wanted to do a podcast, because I want at least some people to look at this from a point of view, not from politics, look at it from a common sense point of view. If you look at the things that the politicians are doing from a common sense point of view, you'll understand who wants to be in control. It's got nothing with the Republicans. That's just the name. All white folks want to be in charge. That's just the nature of their beast. We want to be in charge. But then we're smarter than they are. We know what it takes to be in charge. They're busy trying to, there's nobody growing, it's not picking them up. In other words, it's like this. You plant a field, their field is not fertile. So they can't grow anything. We have to know, we know that there has to be a majority of somebody, so it may as well be us as to be anybody else. That's my theory. So that's my replacement theory. It may as well be us as it is to be them. So I don't think it's fair. I mean, come on. Abortion is cool. Some people people want to have abortion. I am 100% for that. But you got to look at the real deal here. It's the white man down there in Texas said, we don't want any more abortions. And it's the white women going to Mexico and flying all over the country to get abortions because black women can't afford to do that. We got to go to our jobs. We got to take care of the kids. We can't afford to fly out somewhere to have an abortion. Mm-hmm. We got to have it. We got to do what we have to do and feed that child too. See? And my thing is, okay, Mr. Abbott, Governor Abbott, if you want us to have these babies, you take care of them. But in the meantime, you got Jim Manchin talking about we don't want this to be an entitlement society. Well, hell, if you end abortion, there's going to be an entitlement. Somebody got to take care of these babies, and we can't take care of them. Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to talk about that. They'll say, we got to protect the life. It's a life, and that you got to protect it. But then U.S. go out there starting wars and killing and everything else. How is that protecting life? That's not protecting life. You're saying, and it's a religious issue. God is against abortion. God is against it.
That's their whole thing. They blame everything on the good Lord. I know he's mad at us. I guess he said, oh, those people down there, what did I do to deserve them? They blame me for everything. They said good sense they should know what to do. But, that's the things that we do that, and we should pay attention to a lot of stuff. We just don't. We're not. Politics is one of the things that I try to stay ahead of it in terms of you have to use your good sense. Mm-hmm. Do what you have to do. You cannot survive if you don't use. I always say common sense is the most important. I don't care how much education you got. If you don't have common sense, you don't have anything. Mm-hmm. You just there got a whole lot of education, and I have a lot of friends with a lot of education. I have some of my right family members got lots of education, but just as dumb as a brick.
Yeah, I've always said this, and of course my parents, grandparents always said this, like, hey, you can have education. Education is important, but also you need also common sense. You need the two to balance. They complement each other. They balance each other. You got some people who have a lot of street smarts, but they're not educated.
Educated, exactly. Exactly. I always look at it. If you're in my family, and I say, I got this many that if anything happens, they can survive because they are survivors. But you can't be a survivor if you got a whole lot of education and use common sense that, well, I can't cross the street. If you can't cross the street, somebody showed you this is what you push this button and you can cross the street. But otherwise, you're dumb. Yeah. But anyway, I think that should be enough.
Yeah, I think we did very good discussion and everything. We can talk about the other topics on some other time, but I thought it was a great introduction of you being on this podcast and everything. You're one of the very first female guests that I've had on this podcast in a while, so it was great to have you on here. I appreciate the knowledge and the teaching that you just wanted to tell the people and everything, to express that, hey, you got to use your common sense. You got to think critically. You got to, get into like, hey, who's really in control. And I appreciate that.
That is important. So, but, the next one, if you have me back, is I got a good one. You're going to love this one. You don't even have to do it in the podcast. I'll just have you entitled it. You know what it's called? I'll tell you now. It's called Trump's Negroes.
Oh, I like that. I did a podcast earlier. It was like I said Black Coons for Trump. It's
come on, I wouldn't call them that. That coon is too good.
They should be a cooning and shucking and jiving.
Oh, yes, all the time. Yes.
Yes, massa.
I'm still trying to find diamond and silk.
It was a great job having you on here. I just want to say thank you.
Oh, anyway, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I think I got something off my chest. I have a lot of stuff to get off my chest.
Yeah.
I need people to pay attention. And there's not too many podcasts, say like you guys, where people are paying attention. A lot of it has to do with nonsensical stuff.
Yeah.
Like entertainment, it's good, but you really need somebody to go behind the curtain, see what's back there, see what's behind Joe Biden's curtain, see what's behind Kamala Harris, whatever. That kind of, you need somebody to go behind stuff.
Yeah.
So you can't just can't take everything at face value. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree with you.
My mother always had a saying, and I'll leave you with this. Right now, we are in a fight with the bears. Okay? But my mother always said it like this. She said, if you ever see me in a fight with the bear, don't help me. Help the bear. That's the fight we're in right now. Say, we're fighting with the bear, so we don't need to help the bear. We just need to help. Don't help me, you help the bears. Those are the black folks out there that's putting their life and limb and everything else on the line for us. And we sitting here looking off in the space going, yeah, they gonna do that for us. Get up off your butt and go do something yourself.
Yep.
So anyway, on that note, bye boo.
All right, bye. Thank you for joining us on the Black Evolution. This is Dap Davis signing off. Listen to the outro music.
Thank you.